Lately, I've been asked a lot about Modern Warfare, more specifically where the weapons and guns stand in Warzone. I've heard stuff like Cold War guns are straight up better, or that Modern Warfare guns are purposely becoming irrelevant, or even worse, that they're going to be removed from the game. So today I'll be shining a critical light on Warzone, going over what I just mentioned, and explaining why it may be possible. First, we need to talk about weapon balance, because there's a lot of belief that Cold War weapons are simply better than their Modern Warfare counterparts. This goes way back to the Cold War integration in December. Before this time, Warzone was managed and developed mainly by Infinity Ward. However, we can assume by the COD cycle that they do have a COD game to release next year, so they needed to pull out and dedicate more manpower to that game instead. And because of that, when the Cold War integration happened, they pulled support from Warzone and had Raven Software take over for the indefinite future. However, this is where a lot of things started to go downhill, and is where the video really gets started. And the first component of this was weapon balance. Simply put, if you wanted the most effective loadout in Seasons 1 and 2 of Warzone, it made zero sense to use any Modern Warfare weapons. This was because of the overpowered tac rifles. The first wave of them was the DMR and the Type 63. They were two semi-auto rifles that could fire at over 400 rounds per minute while barely having any recoil. And on top of that, headshots dealt 175 damage, which meant that 2-hit kills were possible. It was very common to run into someone using this and be dead within 3 to 5 shots. Because of this, the DMR rose above everything else, and at its peak, it was used in over 27% of loadouts, officially making this the most used gun in all of Warzone at one given point. After the nerf came the M16 and the AUG, which the community found to be really good. Both of these lacked any range drop-off, which meant it would deal the same damage point blank as it would across the map. They also had the titanium barrel attachment, which improved fire rate by around 25% and would nearly double the bullet velocity. To top it all off, both the M16 and AUG had very little recoil, so little in fact that they could be used as snipers if a player wanted them to. This dark period of time was known as the burst meta and ran all the way until Season 3's release at the end of April. So at long range, there wasn't a point in running a Modern Warfare weapon, because in December you would get outgunned by a semi-auto tac rifle, and then in the following months you'd get outgunned by a burst tac rifle. And then at close range this was the same case, except it was with one weapon instead of 4 different ones. And you guessed it, it's the FFAR. It was an assault rifle, but it aimed as fast as an SMG. And it also killed faster than every other SMG. And it had better damage range than every other SMG. It also had a few broken attachments, one of them being the 50 round fast mag, which was supposed to reduce ADS time by about 80 milliseconds, but it didn't. By using this attachment, you got no disadvantages whatsoever. There was also the combat stock. It was discovered that if you fired your weapon while moving, while using the stock, you basically become the next MC Hammer, strafing left to right while the bullets can't touch you. And this was the Warzone meta for the first whole 2 seasons. In Season 1, everyone used the DMR and Type 63, and in Season 2, everyone used the M16 and the AUG. These 5 Cold War weapons took over the entire game, and you were likely to throw if you used anything else, and it was like this for almost 5 entire months. And while Infinity Ward pulled out of Warzone, they also removed most of their support for Modern Warfare. Of course it isn't public info, it's just something that you notice, especially from what I'm about to show you. First off, immediately after the integration, Modern Warfare was kicked out of all further double XP events, despite all 3 games sharing the same leveling system. Every XP event just became Warzone and Cold War, and if you wanted double XP on Modern Warfare, you had to use whatever tokens you had left. Along with that, tier skips were completely removed from Modern Warfare bundles, and instead they can only be found in Cold War bundles. However, what's worse here is the game itself. It slowly devolved itself into a buggy mess, and even if you don't play it, you just have to see what they've done to this. Essentially, every Warzone update breaks Modern Warfare little by little. There's the fun visual bugs like the Charlie T-pose execution, or like the model shotgun causing broken bones and ligaments, or even the Fin LMG that continues to break every other month. And then there's the bugs that really get in the way. On PlayStation, it's a common thing to have data packs randomly uninstall, or even the entire game uninstall, which means when they log back on, they would have to install anywhere from a dozen to several dozens of gigabytes just to play the game. On Xbox, there's several maps that won't load, instead they'll just say match started at the top and never actually start. And this basically affects, I would say, half of the ground war maps and half of the 6v6 maps. And what's funny about this is that you actually have to uninstall certain data packs to fix this, basically the opposite of what PlayStation does. And this is just a small preview of how bugged out the game currently is. If I really wanted to, I could make another 10-minute video and just list out all the bugs that are in this game. Now don't get me wrong, despite shitty maps and strict matchmaking, I actually enjoy playing Modern Warfare. It's just disappointing to watch a game become slowly more unplayable with every update. But yeah, it's just sad. Even the small bugs like the reticle menu being broken just reminds me of the few developers left who take months to fix things like these. In the case of the maps and PlayStation issues, those haven't even been fixed yet, and they've been broken the entire year. You go to Twitter to see if Infinity Ward acknowledges anything, and they've gone ghost, no pun intended. They barely had any activity this year, and if they have, it's just acknowledging social justice and veterans and other COD tweets. There's even their Trello board where they report bugs and they list their status, whether they're being fixed, whether they've been discovered, or, stuff like that. I checked that to see if they know their game's this messed up. To no surprise, their last post on there was from December 15th. Their last update to the community blog was also December 15th, conveniently a day before the Cold War integration. December 15th marked Modern Warfare's last development update, where they finished and put the Psychov, CX-9, and RAL all into the game files. So even though those guns are just getting released now in Warzone, they've been done since last year. In the current state of Warzone, things are much better. The two games are much more balanced. However, Cold War guns still perform better than Modern Warfare guns. This is because of an attachment imbalance between the two generations. To prove this, we're going to use the True Game Data website, so if you want, you can follow along and double check my work. Keep in mind that weapons do change by the week, so some of this may be inaccurate a month or even a couple weeks after the video releases. Let's talk about the Combat Recon barrel on Cold War snipers. This improves bullet velocity on snipers by around 50%. Meanwhile, if you want to improve velocity on Modern Warfare snipers, you'd have to run a barrel that has a load of penalties. You got stuff like hipfire, movement speed, and ADS speed. The Combat Recon only has one downside, which is aiming stability. However, you can fix that by either mounting or just holding your breath. Now with barrels on assault rifles, Cold War takes the win once again. The longest barrel on each rifle offers lower ADS times than their Modern Warfare counterpart. They also reduce horizontal bounce, which is something not offered on Modern Warfare barrels. Because of this, we often see that Cold War weapons have a straighter recoil plot than their counterparts. It's also been said that Cold War guns are faster, and yes, this is true. For Modern Warfare guns, running an extended mag on your weapon would reduce movement speed by around 3%. For Cold War guns, extended mags don't make you run any slower. You run the same speed no matter which magazine you pick, no matter what the weapon type is. There's the Commando foregrip, right, which reduces vertical recoil and horizontal bounce. And at the same time, it also incurs several movement penalties, as you can see here. The counterparts of the Commando foregrip would be the Field Agent and the Spetsnaz grips. These both offer the same percentage of recoil reduction. However, none of these actually reduce movement speed, and in fact on some guns, this attachment actually gives a movement buff, for example with the FARA 83. So the Field Agent and Spetsnaz grips are essentially the Commando foregrip, just without any movement penalty. So like I said, things are a lot more balanced now. However, Cold War guns still have that slight advantage, and it's in the attachment imbalance. The only thing Modern Warfare guns have going for them right now are weapon perks like Fully Loaded or Focus. Additionally, they are overall quicker to level up, as each level requires less XP than the corresponding Cold War level would require. They also have shotguns with slug rounds, but you shouldn't tell anyone that. But there's still a reason why out of the most 10 used weapons, 7 of them are from Cold War. If you look at top 10 loadout videos from both JGod and True Game Data and even other YouTubers, you'll see that 90% of the weapons they include are from Cold War. And it's at this point that nearly every Modern Warfare gun is slightly shadowed by its Cold War counterpart. For a max fire rate SMG, the MAC-10 is basically a better Fennec, with better ADS, movement, recoil, and mag capacity. For a slow firing SMG, the Milano is a better Uzi. For the Uzi to even compete for TTK, it has to have the AE rounds, which limit its mag size to just 32 bullets. For a large mag SMG, the Bullfrog is just a better Bison, better recoil and damage range by far. The Bison has that third drop-off range that the Bullfrog doesn't. For a long-range semi-auto rifle, the DMR is just a better EBR. It can fire faster with less recoil, and it uses rifle rounds, while the EBR uses sniper rounds. Meaning that the DMR can basically hold 4 times the amount of ammo as the EBR would. For a long-range sniper, the ZRG is just a better HDR. It's got better damage, fire rate, bullet velocity, aim sway, and also has a built-in FMJ attachment, which allows you to hit players through entire trees while still doing relatively good damage. I covered this in an older video, and you could literally watch me hit people through entire buildings. For an aggressive sniper, the Swiss is just a better Kar 98. While they both have very similar stats, the Swiss does more damage, and zooms in much further. along with not needing to equip a scope in order to use one. So you almost get that growl advantage where you can select an extra attachment where the Kar 98 has to use an attachment for a sniper scope. For a semi-auto shotgun, the Gallo is just a better origin. It has better range and damage, as well as still having enough mobility for the MC hammer effect I was talking about before. Now, was this all done on purpose? I can't really tell if it's intentional or not. The double XP and the tier skip removals I talked about earlier, those were intentional for sure. No mistake in that. However, the balancing issues seem to just be a huge oversight, especially in the beginning of the integration where Cold War tac rifles just had to be an accident. There is no way that Raven can mess up that badly on purpose. I've also heard a lot about the theory where guns are initially released as a more powerful version, and then nerfed days or weeks later when the players have spent money to unlock them. For some guns, this theory definitely lines up, like the MG82 and the nail gun. They were both extremely powerful. You could earn them for free, but it was either a massive pain or it took a long time. For the nail gun, you had to get kills with either the grenade launcher, ballistic knife, or crossbow over 15 different matches, and the MG wasn't available until tier 15 in the battle pass. However, you could either buy the nail gun bundle or buy 15 tiers to get the MG unlocked. And these guns were busted, both setting new records for TTK. Speaking of records, I even set my own for plunder, scoring 162 kills with the MG, just because I knew it was that broken. And I'm fairly sure it's a world record too. I haven't uploaded it yet because of the backlash I'm afraid of getting, but if you really want to see the gameplay, let me know and I'll plan it for an upload. Now, are Modern Warfare guns still viable? Sure. It's not like getting down with an M4 or a PKM is going to throw your game away every time. I would even say that your gun skill with a given weapon is now more important than changing your loadout to the new meta every other week. There's definitely novelty weapons that are still viable, like the Cali sticks or the Jak 12 slug rounds. I would include more weapons in that sentence, but they were all nerfed recently, like the AS Val, which was the fastest killing assault rifle in Warzone, only kept in check by its small mag size and limited range. Or the MP5, which was the best overall SMG for Modern Warfare. Even the M19 Akimbos, which were the best dual-wield pistols to use in Warzone. But we're now at that point where maximizing for success will eventually draw you to using Cold War weapons, and that's just how it is right now. Now for the next question, which is, are Modern Warfare guns going to be removed from Warzone? Fortunately, the Vanguard reveal from last week confirmed that all Modern Warfare and Cold War weapons would be brought over with the integration, including all blueprints and Battle Pass unlocks. So it's safe to say that we're good for another year. However, it will get to a point where Warzone will eventually bloat from how much shit is in it. After the Vanguard integration, there'll be over 100 different weapons and several different operators and several hundred different camos. There's 100 camos for Modern Warfare and also another 200 for Cold War. And on top of that, the engine will have to support close to 1,000 different blueprints. There's still the little stuff like the calling cards, emblems, and stickers and charms that I haven't even mentioned. Only time will tell how this stuff is handled. I'd assume at one point that Warzone will require a next-gen console to be played, and that's how this whole memory issue would be solved. I really wish I could talk more about it, but I'm not a game dev myself, so if I kept going or even made a video about this, you would get a really bad answer. If you enjoyed this video, let me know, and be sure to check out my other ones. My name is Wetzel, and until next time.